Do you know what would be a great appetizer dish for when we're allowed to throw Christmas parties again and dinner parties with quarantine and all? You know, it would be sausage rolls. So let me show you how to make it. So for the pastry recipe, I'm going to be using the recipe from my chicken pot pie video. I'm going to use half of it. So I'm using 125 grams of flour, 100 grams of butter, and 4 tablespoons of water. Now I'm going to dump that into a food processor. Make sure your ingredients are ice cold. And then I'm going to go ahead and season it with some salt and some pepper. So once it's seasoned, I'm going to go ahead and blend this up real quick just to get it mixed through. And then I'm going to add in my butter. Now I'm going to go ahead and blitz this up in short pulses. Careful not to blend it too long because I don't want the butter to melt into the flour. So all I'm looking here is for a pebbly texture. But anyways, for a more detailed recipe, go check out my chicken pot pie video in the top right corner. Anyways, this is the texture I'm looking for here. Again, that pebbly texture. Now it's time to add in my water. I'm adding in 4 tablespoons of ice cold water. And yes, ice cold water is very important. You might need more, you might need less depending on your dough, but I am using 4 tablespoons. So I'm gonna go ahead and blitz this up again in short pulses just until it starts to come together. Kind of like this. And when you squeeze in your hand and it just comes together, but it can still be a bit crumbly, that is the perfect consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this out, and I'm just going to simply bring this together into a rectangular square-ish shape. Nothing fancy here. I don't want to over knead it because if I over knead it, it will get tough. So just bring it until it comes together. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this in the saran wrap. And once it's wrapped up, I'm just going to press this into the saran wrap just to kind of push it out into the edges to make sure it's nice and even as well, so that this dough will hydrate evenly and then it will roll out evenly. Now after I've pressed it out, I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the fridge for at least 2 hours minimum to let it chill and to let it hydrate. So for the sausage portion of this, there's 2 options. You can go ahead and use a pre-made one like this package here. It's just an Italian sausage. And to prepare this, it's very simple. Just take it out of the casing. That's it. Told you it was simple. I'm using about 3 sausages. And once I've taken it out of the casing, I'm going to mush them together into one cohesive meatball, essentially. And now we move on to the homemade version. And the homemade version starts out with some spices. The first one is fennel. And fennel gives it this nice licoricey taste. Kind of is what you taste in sausage. Next, I'm going to use rosemary. Gives me this nice earthy flavor. Thyme. Nice citrusy earthy flavor. And some sage. This is kind of the flavor you also taste when you eat sausages. Into a spice grinder, I'm going to go ahead and add in a teaspoon of every single spice I just showed you. So a teaspoon of my fennel, teaspoon of the sage, teaspoon of the rosemary. All right, there you go. And a teaspoon of the thyme. And then I'm going to go ahead and crack in my pepper as much as I like, as much as you like. And 3 cloves of garlic. Now, I'm going to blend this up until it's a nice fine texture. Something like this. Alright, so now to a bowl, I'm going to go ahead and put in a 1/4 cup of panko breadcrumbs. You can use any breadcrumbs you have on hand, that is fine. And I'm just going to put in enough milk to cover the breadcrumbs here. And I use about 2 tablespoons. If you put too much, your sausage mixture might get too wet. I just need enough milk or liquid to hydrate these breadcrumbs, just to give it some extra juiciness to the sausage. But once that has soaked up, I'm gonna go ahead and dump in my ground pork. This is about half a pound's worth. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put in all my spices. Now, if you notice, I haven't put any salt anywhere in this sausage mixture yet. That is because I would like to control the salt levels myself. So now is the time. I'm gonna add in a big pinch of salt. And then to off balance that saltiness, just a touch of sugar, half a teaspoon's worth is fine. And some mushroom powder for some extra savoriness. And there's nothing left to do but to mash it all up, make sure everything's mixed through. Knead it a couple of times to get it emulsified together. And to taste this for seasoning, I'm gonna put a little bit on a plate like this and microwave it for about, I don't know, 30 seconds. And it should come out like this, and then just taste it for seasoning. And for me, it's perfect, so let's move on. Now it's time to roll out the dough. Make sure you flour your dough very well so that it doesn't stick. Flour your rolling pin too, actually. And I'm just gonna roll this out about 14 inches long and 4 inches wide. So at this point it should be 1/4 of an inch thick. And I'm just gonna slice this in half because I'm gonna be making 2 long sausage rolls. And then take one of those halves and go ahead and roll it out. You want it to be about 16 inches long and 4 inches wide. And 4 inches wide. So your pastry should be an 1/8 inch thick. So take one of your sausage mixtures and go ahead and just put it into a sausage shape onto the puff pastry. You want it to be off center so that you can fold the pastry over after you're done. Kind of like this. So make sure you leave some room. So once you've got your sausage mixture on there, go ahead and crack an egg into a bowl and then just whip it up. This is going to be the egg wash, aka the glue. And yes, you kind of need the egg wash here because it will stick the pastry together. And just take a brush or a spoon or whatever and brush it around where you imagine the pastry will stick together. And that's where you want to paint it. Now fold it over and kind of push the meat in to form that sausage better. And with your hand, just push all the air out as much as possible. It doesn't have to be super perfect. It's not going to be the end of the world. And once I've gotten to the sausage shape, I'm just going to trim this up a bit. The first thing I'm going to do is just trim these jagged edges off. I mean, you can leave them, but this is just for aesthetic purposes. And then I'm going to trim off the ends, just the excess. Don't trim off too much off the end. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this up. I'm cutting it into 1.5 inch pieces. This yielded me about 12 for each roll, or 24 total. You can cut it thinner if you want, but I wouldn't suggest it. And you can definitely cut it thicker. Up to you. Anyways, transfer this to a tray. And then go ahead and use that leftover egg wash and brush it on the sausage roll pieces. Now this is totally optional, but I'm going to sprinkle it with this everything but the bagel seasoning for my homemade one. And then for the store-bought one, I'm going to sprinkle in just some black sesame seeds. So once I've gotten this sprinkled, I'm going to go ahead and put it into an oven preheated at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes or until cooked and browned. So now it should be done. Look at the nice golden brown color. And I'm just going to transfer this to a wire rack just to let it cool through so it won't steam, so that pastry stays nice and crispy. Let it rest for a little bit before you eat it so you don't, burn your mouth. But once it's rested, it is time for the taste test. Wow, look at these, just nice and golden. And if you can just smell these right now, they smell delicious. All right, so there's two kinds. Like I said in the video, the one with the black sesame seeds are the one with the pre-made sausage meat. And the one with the everything bagel seasoning is the sausage that I made. So, that said, I'm going to try the one that's been pre-made. Cheers. Look at that. Nice and flaky. Here, I don't know if you can see that. Nice and brown and flaky. Okay, let's try that. Cheers. So, flaky crust, delicious meat. I mean, you already know it's Italian sausage. Of course, it's going to be good, right? It's just perfect. So, let's try the one I made. Okay, here. Okay, cheers. You know what the difference is? The difference is just like the flavor is just times 3, times 4. You know, because I took the time to take the spices, the whole spices, and grind them up myself. So it packs more flavor. The fresh garlic, you can taste the garlic. It's not pungent because it cooked in that meat. And the earthiness from rosemary, from the thyme, and the fennel seeds is just so perfect for this. And of course, if you've seen my pot pie video, the crust is flaky. The pastry is flaky. So give this recipe a try. And if you like this video, hit that like button below. For more videos like this, hit the subscribe button or that one over there. And for my previous video, hit that one over there. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you. Bye.